Oh, there it is. Perfect time.
Everybody knows it.
I should be just standing there.
Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to the January 25th, 2024 Stretch Unit Appeal Board. We do have a quorum, and so I will call this meeting to order. A couple of announcements. David Holt, our board member, is attending virtually through our electronic systems, the OWL system. And then I'd also like to welcome back Representative Smith to the Distressed Unit Appeal Board, and no stranger to our activities, so thank you very much. I would like to also note for the record that this meeting is being held and all the required notices have been published according to the open door law. Our first order of business today is the approval of the December 14th, 2023 minutes for both the executive session and the public meeting. The minutes were previously distributed. And are there? Oh, go ahead.
I would say we have to roll when we go.
Yeah, I got that. Are there any corrections or clarifications needed for the minutes? Hearing none, because we do have a member that is from working remote for this meeting, we will call the roll.
I'll take a motion that
Oh,
we
I think we need.
Yeah. On December 14th, 2023, probably being in executive session.
Okay. There is a motion and
Second.
motion and a second. Pete?
Mr. Joyce,
Yes.
Mr. Shackle,
Yes.
Mr. Holt,
Yes.
Next agenda item is our public comment. And so do we have the roster?
Sorry.
Ready? We'll remind our speakers that we will have a 3-minute time limit on our remarks. And our first up is Mrs. Tyndall. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Mrs. Lavetta Tyndall, a 1966. Where's my timer?
working on it.
Okay, we're gonna.
Bonus time.
It will not try to get.
1966 graduate of the historically profound, architecturally renowned learning institution, the Great Mary Theodore Roosevelt High School, which we want DUAB to support in financing its renovation, preservation, and repurposing as a multifaceted, multi-generational community service structure. We want a working computer to each of our students and a 24/7 technical support system. We want credentialed teachers in each of our general classrooms, 1 teacher per 12 students. We want 1 credentialed teacher for each of our each student in a 5-student classroom. We want you, DUAB, to maintain or ensure that the Bethune pre-K status with complete services is maintained. We want the middle school buildings to be maintained, not to be destroyed or being to be used for other purposes. And we want the middle school education level to remain intact in their own building. We want to ensure properly credentialed teachers are working as teachers of true subjects, math, reading, writing, chemistry, not diaper changing, not bodyguarding, and not escorting students to and from drop-off points and pick-up points of school buildings. So to leave the teacher in the classroom, to teach and monitor their students. DUAB, we want you to ensure that you and whomever you're supervising in this effort regarding our schools, that the financing is and actively intentional promoting of the demise of our Gary school system, its students, its future, their lives, their progress, their growth. We want those efforts to stop. We want you to stop allowing the current management team to perform without supervision, transparency, accountability. Instead, we want you to promote true board activities that are local, active, responsive to the cries and concerns of the community it serves. Please accept the packet I'm circulating with a suggested reading list prepared by Dr. Ayla Spengler. This information was to be presented following the last meeting. And I forgot to bring it up to the podium, so here you are. And we need to get a copy of this to Mrs. Tracy Brown.
We'll do that.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Next up, Dr. Michaela Spangler. Well, you vaulted to the top.
Oh, goodness, did I? My name is Dr. Michaela Spangenberg. I am a facilitator for the Gary Education Coalition. I believe the statement that's being passed out is the one that I made at the prior session when I joined remotely. Some pressing concerns that we have. People need more transparency about what's happened to like the fiscal oversight board that we had. You know, the understanding was that that was going to be phased out when our board was in something other than an advisory capacity, but that seems to have already dissipated for some reason. And more transparency around the building corporation, particularly since there's still a lot of talk about closing schools, which also doesn't make sense because there's a lot of talk about rising enrollment. And given some of the trends and data that we're seeing, you know, we're expecting more students to come in, but we're closing schools. Something that, especially closing schools, we just put a lot of money into putting new roofs on, buildings that are in really good shape. That something doesn't sit right there. I'm also very concerned about the literacy situation, given that I don't think we're prepared for a situation in which if SB1 passes in its current form, we're not prepared for a mandatory retention scenario. Because I don't think we have, even though that's supposed to be a last resort, I don't think that we have anything in place that's actually going to divert students from that. And I think we're going to see the majority of our students end up in a retention scenario. Because not only, and that's just counting the younger kids, but at the same time, we also have older kids that are being completely missed by those interventions. We have 8th graders that are reading at a 3rd grade level. We have 12th graders who are reading at a 3rd grade level. And that's completely unacceptable. You know, our duty of care to our children doesn't just end just because they've graduated high school. You know, if we haven't equipped them to be healthy, contributing, and well-prepared members of society, then I don't know what the purpose of our school corporation is. And again, I'll speak to the mental health ramifications as well of a mandatory retention scenario, because if we end up retaining the majority of our students, now the American Pediatric Association has come out and said, hey, that's an adverse childhood event. You need 4 of those just to have the entire course of your physical health, your economic outcomes completely diverted for the rest of your life. That research is out of Stanford originally. It's something that anyone can access. It's well established over time. And now they've really looked at the impact of these just kind of broad retentions. And it's
Attorney Coleman?
Good afternoon. I'm Attorney Coleman, and I'm here to ask that DUAB give you good news that you can forgive the debt for the Gary Community School Corporation. And after that last meeting in December, where it was discussed that the Gary Community School Corporation had a 1.2 million negative balance, I just hope it hit home that you can't let somebody out of a bankruptcy without a discharge. Because if you don't forgive the debt, the reality is you haven't solved the problems. And for people to make the argument, if you do it for Gary, you have to do it for everyone. And that's why we can't help Gary like Gary needs to be helped. I'm asking that you let the Speaker of the House know, the Senate Pro Tem, let them know that that argument is so unfair that they should not allow it. I look at Gary when it crashed as being, we had no air traffic controllers. We had no airport. We had no runway. So when those tax caps hit, and also remember, this is a district that built 3 new schools and renovated a 4th. It wasn't where you had to go out for a referendum. The state of Indiana, when you have an Office of Budget Management, you help the government look at every possible scenario before people make a decision. Gary didn't have that. And then on top of it, if you look at the numbers, Gary was still sustainable. What crashed it was Tony Bennett. And this is where it becomes, you just look at the numbers. Because the thing about numbers, they're going to tell their own story. So when we get to 2010, the district ended with 22 million. We look at 2011, it ends with 4 million. So you know something's happening. But then when you look at when Tony Bennett took Roosevelt, it ended with a negative $5 million. So even though this community was trying, there was no way you could avoid a crash. And because of that crash, it is so important that DUAB let the Speaker of the House know, let everybody know, if you're going to be sincere with Gary, you're forgiving the debt. And then I would also like to direct you to the Facilities Master Plan in August 2018. Dr. Hinckley came here and said, build a field house. This is what she said. So what's the purpose of paying NGT $100,000 bonus where we have a facilities plan, our babies still don't have a swimming pool, we still don't have a field house, but yet McNulty got to spend $8 million on furniture and the reconfiguration that the community did, DUAB did not make NGT follow. And so I'm asking that DUAB do your responsibility with government. Look out for the children of Gary, because even though they're residents of Gary, they're your responsibility as a citizen. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we have Mrs. Ammons.
Good afternoon. My name is Natalie Ammons, and I'm here. There are a lot of issues with our school, and I want to say with our schools and with the takeover and all of that. But one thing, when we go to meetings and continually, I'm trying to find out more about the curriculum, because we're not hearing enough about the curriculum and the strategies we're going to use to help increase children's test scores. That bothers me. And the other thing that's bothersome to me, and I talk about this all the time, and you all may think it's minor, but we can't keep coming to meetings where the presentations are not visible for people to see them. The print is so small, and then you use all this color that's drowning out everything, and you can't have a official report to be able to follow that. You need to do better about that and keeping the people informed, because I don't think that that's fair. It's like you're hiding stuff, and if we want to talk about it, we hit a magnifying glass in order to just be able to get something. I'm still concerned about the low, although I said at the meeting last night and I heard about the increases and in terms of truancy and all the other things, but I'm really, really concerned that the parents are being locked out. And that we are not having more programs to have people and families and mothers and fathers come in and interact with their children more. And I think that that's a big component when it comes to our children and increasing their learning environment, because they're learning with their parents, and it's better for them in the communities. So as I said, I've heard a lot of things, and I know there are gonna be other things that are said. So I'm just, those are some problems, some problematic issues that we need to address. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cole.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and the people in the internet world. My name is Robert Coleman, community servant. Mine is really short today. I noticed I would like to request that when we have the meetings with the Gary Community School Corporation and when we come before you, could you all add a second public comments after the MGT or the Gary Community School Corporation get up and give their presentation, so we can ask questions if we have questions about statements they might have made. And we would like that to be inputted here and in Gary at all of the school board meetings, if possible. And also, I'm also on behalf of the community asking that you forgive the Gary school loans. It has been done for other schools in Indiana, and why not for Gary Community School Corporation? Thank everyone for their time. Be blessed.
Thank you. I believe that's the, all the people on the list. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak that is here today?
Mr. Chairman, if there's nobody else in the community to speak, I would like to address 2 points that was made by the speakers.
Okay.
I too support the forgiveness of the school loans, and it's within the purview of DUAB to do that. I think one justification, and I think the speaker said that there might be those who say if you do it for Gary, you got to do it for all of them. I would say to all those school corporations, if you go before the DUAB board and you're under supervision for the length of time Gary has, then that's justification for you giving the loan. I agree with the speaker that was to start with, that indebtedness is not going to be beneficial to us. And the second thing I wanted to make a point about is that they mentioned the merging of our schools. The community is diabolically opposed to that. I haven't heard of one person who has supported that concept. There is a middle point which people have proposed, and that is that we merge the 2 middle schools before we move to merge the middle schools, both middle schools, into the high school. I know I don't have a vote in this matter. However, I am a voice for my community, and those are 2 points that I would like to make.
Thank you, Representative Smith. And I don't believe there's,
That's a third, and I was gonna bring that up when MGT makes a report. I agree with one of the speakers. I was just notified a day or so ago that I had to, that I was being placed back on this board. I think a couple of days ago, right? I don't know if it was anyway. And so I was supposed to be back in Gary at this hour doing university business stuff. I have 2 lives. But I didn't want my public to think that I wasn't gonna be here as I've been in the past or I've been on the board. So I just changed my schedule at home. But as I was sitting down last night trying to get ready for this board meeting, I could not read this information. That you have to have contrast of color for people to read. I know my eyes are old and I had on my reading glasses, but I still couldn't read the numerals on here. And so I think we got to do a better job of getting these reports. And that was the same problem we had prior when I was on here, and I brought that point.
thank you. And I make one call out for the folks that are listening remotely, if anybody wishes to make any remarks during our public comment period. Okay. Very good. Moving on. We have our academic update, and I think to kick things off will be Dr. Esther Goods. Dr. Goods.
Good afternoon. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Well, greetings, everyone. I am Dr. Esther Goods, Chief of Schools for Gary Community School Corporation. I am attending this meeting virtually because we have several events here today. I will be giving academic updates in the absence of our deputy manager, Miss Mavis Nelson. This is data that will be shared regularly each month with you. We will begin with student attendance. So this data has been collected in terms of school year, school year 21-22, school year 22-23, and then the next 5 bars show each month of this current school year. At the secondary level, the data is trending up from last school year by about 5% overall at the secondary level. It is still not where it needs to be. It's hovering around 78 to 84%. So we're showing improvement, but it is still not at the 90 to 95% mark. So there are some specific targeted strategies that each school has put in place, and the district has put in place an attendance campaign in order to increase our attendance. If I had to give us a grade at this point on a standard grading scale, it would be a C+, B- at the secondary level. At the elementary level, the attendance is trending downward by 1%. It's still in the mid to high 80s, averaging around 86% for all 5 schools. So we would garner a solid B as a grade, but we are going to need the assistance of our parents in our community to help us improve. Because we all know at the end of the day that students who are not in school are not getting their education. Transportation is much improved, so that is no longer an issue. Students, parents, several folks have reported to me that transportation is running right on time. But students that are not in school at the elementary level, that is something we're going to need some parental support with. I want to make sure everyone knows that we are mindful of Senate Bill 282 and that we are currently adjusting our resources to address truancy overall in our district. As we move to suspensions, student suspensions at the elementary schools, because this graph shows school year 21-22, school year 22-23, and then school year 23-24 are significantly down in 4 out of 5 of my elementary schools. I have one school that I've targeted, and we're meeting with administrators at the elementary level and putting some interventions in place. The attempt is not to have students out of school because, again, that feeds into attendance. So we want to make sure our students are in school, getting an education. Principals are doing some creative things to make sure that they are able to keep students as much as possible. There are times when suspensions and alternative placements are necessary. And then we take those steps because we are ensuring education for all students. At the secondary level, oh, and if I had to give us a grade on suspensions at the elementary level, it would be a B+, A-. At the secondary level, middle school has shown some tremendous gains because they are trending down in suspensions and expulsions. I am closely monitoring Westside, as is their administrative staff, because we're looking at where the graph shifts. down significantly, and then it kind of it levels out. It looks like school year 23-24 may catch up with 22-23. So the principal and his staff and I have met, and we are working on some targeted interventions for West Side specifically. They are drilled down and gotten to some root causes, and we'll be incorporating some technology and launching some new programs to address suspensions so that students are in school. If we were to give a grade at the secondary level, it would be a solid C. I'm so happy to be able to report that middle school has trended downward, but we definitely will keep our eyes on high school. Classroom walkthrough data for semester 1. So what you see is administrators are collecting walkthrough data. As they walk through buildings, they reported that 81.1% of students are on task. Now, what does that mean? That means that students are completing or currently working on the task that they are being asked to complete at that time. So then you say, well, what tasks are those? We drill down into what types of tasks we're asking students to do and how do they correlate with what students will need to know as we graduate them from high school and out into the world and prepare them for the world. How does it correlate to the assessments that we are measured by? So our highest task is teacher presentation with opportunities to respond inquiry-based, okay? So it's excellent that 31% of our teachers are asking students questions and diving deep into inquiry-based learning because it gets our students thinking. But it is also an assessed area because students are going to be assessed on inquiry-based questions and what they know and what they are able to infer from what they've read. We need that needle to move. So 31% should be 80% or 90%. When we look at online assessments, digital programs are being used about 18% of the time. And yes, that correlates to the online assessment. We want to make sure that the tasks that they're being asked to do digitally are inquiry-based, are comprehension-based, are best practices. Okay, when we go to 15% of the time, we saw students in stations and centers. And for grades K-8, that is an excellent strategy for students to continuously move from center to center and take part in different activities that measure their comprehension on whatever that standard is. Hands-on activities are best practices, and student collaboration are best practices in the classroom. So we saw hands-on activities about 13.6% of the time, and students collaborated with each other. And we know they learn well from each other about 5% of the time. So we're looking at assessed activities because as you can see where reading is 3.3%. Need to move that needle. We're looking at assessed activities, we're looking at best practices, we're looking at what type of activities and tasks we're asking students to do in the classroom so that we are getting the best outcome and they are able to conceptualize and think and take things to the next level. So I'm going to share with you some of the upcoming events that we have. We have been engaged in a monthly Roar to Read activity. So for Roar 24, our activities begin today. This evening at 4 o'clock at Williams Elementary School, we will be giving away books. There is a Let It Snow, Stay In and Read book giveaway. Administrators will be on site. They will be reading with their students. We're expecting parents and families to come out. Our Roar to Read events have been quite successful in terms of family and community engagement. You may have heard that in December of 2023, we had a big Polar Express Roar to Read event. It lasted 2 days. We also did an evening event. We had over 400 families present at Westside. It was an opportunity for families to participate with students and staff and just dive into the love of reading. So in February, we have Love Our History. In March, we're looking at March Madness. In April, we have STEM and Read. And in May, we have the Gary Community School Corporation Expo. We have some other events that are focused on reading every week in the elementary, middle, and high schools. On Wednesdays, we are starting our days with Drop Everything and Read and Write. So students will be reading, they will be writing, responding to prompts that the staff has been putting together for them. We also have a required reading launch that begins early February. We have an essay contest that students are participating in conjunction with City Hall. And we have Divine Nine Fridays. So the African American sororities and fraternities are invited to take a lunch hour, take a little time out and sign up and come into our schools and read to our students. So that flyer is circulating and we are asking all to come in and read with our students, read to our students, and ask questions of our students. The next slide is where we engage staff. Because staff is integral and key to what we do and what happens with students in the classroom. A staff feedback survey was administered at the secondary level and at the elementary level. The areas of strength and weakness were very well aligned. So I will start with our number one area of strength for secondary was expectations from leadership are clear and I feel comfortable asking questions. That was also the number one area of strength for elementary as well. 2 and 3 interchange for elementary, but for secondary, they feel treated, they feel respected and treated as professionals. And number 3, the time spent collaborating with other teachers is productive and useful. And at the elementary level, communication from leadership is clear and they feel comfortable asking questions. And they feel respected and treated as professionals. Our areas of growth are behavior management support, professional development, communicate rationale for decisions, and opportunities for teacher input. So as with everything, when you know better, you do better. So we are taking the staff's feedback and we are putting additional pieces in place where professional development, we are creating some committees for staff to be able to deliver professional development to our teachers, their colleagues. We have also some committees where we want to be able to put together a communication plan that staff feels comfortable with. And behavior management support, we have been asking staff to give us areas that they see a need. We've been asking administrators to give us those areas as well. And then we have some areas that we have outlined also. That concludes the report.
Thank you, Dr. Good. Are there any questions for the doctor? I have a question, Dr. Good, on the last couple of slides where we talked about the engagement with the teachers. Is there feedback that you've obtained in these surveys that will help inform some of the interventions you talked about at the elementary and west side as far as the suspensions, trying to tackle suspensions?
Yes. It's not in the survey, but those are targeted sessions where we start talking about professional development. The best resource we have is our teachers, right? So we have, we're tapping into those teachers who do classroom management well, and they're going to deliver some professional development, share with their colleagues, share with the staff, because the best practitioner is the person that's doing it and doing it well and doing it now. So we are asking for, we have a call out asking them to sign up for professional development. Those that don't sign up, that are a little bit more timid or, hesitant, we are making a personal plea to them, because the value that we have is we get a chance to walk through their classrooms. We get a chance to see who has great classroom management and who would benefit from some additional resources. We're not all perfect in any one vein. And so what we want to do is be able to spread out and really collaborate and share. We've got to do more sharing.
Yeah,
Representative Smith.
yeah, Dr. Goods, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you, Dr. Smith?
I'm great. I had a little difficulty reading the legend down to be able to interpret the data that you have here. Could you just tell me, and I still can't read it, could you tell me the red color, what's that color indicative of?
It's on the survey.
So, on the survey?
Yeah, it's on the graphs that you have.
Okay, so the red color is strongly agree.
Okay,
The salmon pink color is agree.
agree.
Yes, the yellow is disagree. And the orange at the very top is strongly disagree.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Other questions for Dr. Good? Okay. Thank you very much for walking us through these slides.
Absolutely. Thank you.
We'll move on to sustainability update. Dr. Razor.
Good afternoon. I will echo the representative's comments. I left my reading glasses in the car, and I agree. So we will do better.
This is 200 and that's still nice.
So today I want to give an update of a report that I gave in October, and it's on the financial sustainability and stability of the district. In October, we were in a situation where it appeared at the time of the presentation to DUAB that we were down 200 students. Through the conflict resolution process, we were able to actually have an enrollment that came in over 3,900 with conflict resolution, something that typically has not happened in the district. Conflicts went our way, so students were back, and enrollment actually grew a little from last fall. The other thing we were able to do at the last meeting was create a rainy day fund through fund reconciliation for the school district, as well as throughout the summer and fall, try to find cost efficiencies to run more efficiently as a school district. So the recommendation, and let me first, I'm going to tell you what our recommendations are and then why, but then we'll go through what has led us to those and what we're continuing to work on. But we can skip right to the recommendation. We feel we're in a position where the new superintendent and school board can make a decision about school reconfiguration. We're still saying that it is necessary from our vantage point, given the capacity and utilization of buildings as well as the financial situation of the school district, but there is some time to do so. So what has allowed that is what I just said. We have implemented cost-saving measures. There is a rainy day fund now where a oops or a catastrophe that would need to be addressed doesn't have to come out of the yearly operating budget to do that. Enrollment is stabilized and is increasing. And additionally, you heard it today and we've heard it. the community has said this is a decision that we really want Gary to make, not to be made for us. And because of the situation, we feel like that can be a decision now that the district can make, that there is time for the new school board and the new superintendent to make decisions. However, as I said earlier, a 7-12 consolidation is still our recommendation. And reason being is it's not only a financially strong decision, but operationally and academically, there's some real benefits that we feel the district can take advantage of from having all the secondary teachers and secondary students in one location. But let's just jump right into the data. So you can see the district's enrollment trends, and we've shown this before, and I do have shown this slide before. You know, there was a dramatic drop in enrollment over the last 20 years, the first 10 especially, and then sort of a slight stair step. But as you can see, enrollment has finally stabilized, and with us having just over 3,900 kids in the fall, and I do want to point out to the board and to the community in attendance, that does not count early childhood. We have around 250 students in our early childhood facilities, but Indiana bases this on K-12 enrollment, as you know. Also, very positively, we take spring count next week, and our preliminary count that we did at the beginning of this week had us at 4,052 students. So again, a bump, and we typically see a bump in the spring, but will bring us ahead of where we were last year in the spring also. Then a snapshot next of the financial state of the district. As we talked about at the last meeting, the district has now ran surplus over, and these are school years that we're looking at here, has ran a surplus the last 4 school years. And we are projecting those into the future. However, if we go on to the next slide, if you look at the 5-year forecast, and this forecast is based on flat enrollment and a 3% increase in expenses and a 3% increase in revenue. You see that in 2028, 2029, if the referendum is not renewed, the district runs at a deficit. Then in 29-30, the district runs at a very large deficit and borders again on insolvency. So how can the district address this deficit that is coming in 28, 29? Next slide, please. The referendum solves the insolvency and allows the district to stay solvent for 10 years. However, we don't feel like the district can just rely, because as we've seen from our neighbors in Hammond and other nearby districts, referendums were defeated and defeated pretty soundly. We also feel that a referendum does not garner community support if it's, hey, we just need the money to pay our bills. And if the district is living outside of its means. So 2 things that we think can help that. There needs to be more targeted work on enrollment, because the amount of students, you know, with each student essentially being just a little less than $11,000, enrollment can very positively impact. And the district could run a surplus in 2028, 2029 with only 232 additional students. However, you can see that's a very slim surplus the district would be running. And then the next year, without a referendum, would again run in a deficit. Consolidation saves approximately $2 million per school, $4 million total, with it being 2 schools, and that allows the district to run a surplus into 28, 29. And we can show then on the next slides what those forecasts look like. So scenario 1 that we're showing here is consolidation plus the referendum. The way I describe this is, if you put an address into your GPS, it'll give you 2 or 3 different ways to get there. And this would be the recommended route. This is going to be the easiest and the fastest and the least miles. Consolidation, as you can see, gives a bump to the surpluses. Passing the referendum. Now, if you notice, even with passing the referendum in the out years of a renewal of referendum in 29-30, surplus drops dramatically, but the district still runs at a surplus. Reason for that is referendum sharing. So now where we're taking the full referendum, this is at half or less moving forward with sharing with the charters. So is this the only way? It isn't. But you can see from scenario number 2, the other ways are a little more difficult. The district can get there through enrollment and consolidation also, can continue to run its surpluses. However, we're talking a 5% increase in students by 28, 29. There are not a lot of districts that I would say can pull that off in a static population or a slightly growing population city. That, you know, that we do this work across the country doing enrollment projections for schools. The one thing I can say about Gary, though, and I'm not saying this is an impossible scenario in Gary, because these kids exist right now. They're going to other schools in Gary. So there are, this is a possibility. It is difficult, and we see no data to show that. The only thing that I could predict if I was doing an enrollment projection for Gary would be a slightly stable growth in the enrollment, because that's what we're seeing, because 1 year isn't a trend. The reason we're saying the district has time is because trends could change. But the recommendation that we've made then would be consolidation needs to happen within the 2025-2026 school year or the 2026-2027 school year. Because if the referendum is a necessity, the district has to start planning for it today. And if enrollment does not increase, the district has to consolidate in time to build up surpluses to be able to survive a referendum not passing. Next, please. So what are we doing right now? You've heard me talk before about future proofing. And what we're trying to do right now, given the forecasts that we've ran, is we're trying to future-proof the district as much as we can. We are looking at all administrative and operational costs to see if there's a way to do it cheaper or better. We've had some success with that within the securing of Roosevelt High School. We're able to save almost $100,000 a year in expenses on what we were doing to keep the building secure. Snow removal, for example, we were able to save over $200,000 annually in what we were paying just by going in-house with snow removal instead of paying up front whether they were moving snow or not. Isn't the only way to get there. You can't save yourself to prosperity or save your way to prosperity, but this is a necessary thing. We have implemented a much more structured budgeting system and procedures to give the new board and administration a much cleaner pulse on how things are happening in real time with our budgets. The other thing we're doing is we're looking at our ESSER funding and our 1065 funding for future cost savings, meaning more efficient HVAC systems, LED lighting, we'll talk about a little bit later as well. We are also making necessary facilities upgrades in West Side and other schools that address deferred maintenance and really put the district in good shape over the next few years to build surpluses where they won't have to be spending that money on upgrades necessarily. And then again, energy and cost savings initiatives. And we're also looking to grow our operational cash reserves and making sure that we have money needed post 2024. And the reason I say post 2024 is that's when ESSER runs out. That's also when our 1065 loan suspension ends, and making sure that there is money, part of setting a rainy day fund and hopefully growing the rainy day fund by this summer, is that there is money there for unexpected operational need or capital need post 2024. Operationally, again, we're going to upgrade West Side Leadership Academy. That is the flagship school of the district at this point, and we want to make sure that it is upgraded. Things that have been mentioned here before, the bathrooms, the locker rooms, but also making sure that HVAC across the district is very high functioning and energy efficient. And then doing an LED upgrade across the district. And we're estimating we can save up to $500,000 a year in utility costs through an LED upgrade. And using our 1065 funds for that, it's not going to come out of the operational budget, so it's almost immediate return on investment. Academically, we look to, and we've been spending our money on science of reading, focusing on that, putting in curricular and assessment systems, doubling down on professional development as well, while we can take advantage of the money we have for that. Still, a super focus of ours is recruitment and retention of our teachers. And, again, thank the board for approving our teacher stipends and raises last year. They've been last meeting, they've been much appreciated and help us to become and stay an employer of choice where people want to come because of the great benefits that we can offer. Ms. Nelson has talked to you before about high impact tutoring. We're doubling down on that. We're very excited about the efforts there. And then MTSS, multi-tiered system of supports district-wide. So takeaways, or as I like to say, me telling you what I've told you, is we recommend school consolidation in the next 2 years. Doesn't have to be junior, senior high. That's our recommendation. However, right now, a 4,000 student district, even a 5,000 or 6,000 student district with 10 schools, you can, and one of them able to hold well over 2,000 students, you can do the math. The enrollment must remain stable, but any uptick is a positive financially for the district. The district needs to work right now to start garnering community support for the referendum. That might even be partnering with charter schools, as they will be beneficiaries as well, and more support. And as I said, the referendum can't be about just paying the bills. The referendum puts the district in a position, if passed, to do some of the things that were talked about earlier, building field houses, swimming pools, those type of things, or new schools. And then finally, the district must continue to identify and implement any efficiency that they can to find ways to operate where they're not impacting what happens in the classroom, and that our money is going to improve the lives of children, not finance operations. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Reagan. Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First I want to ask, I've heard Roosevelt mentioned twice. Is there something going on with Roosevelt that I'm not aware of?
So Roosevelt, we had 24-hour, 24/7, 365 security at the building,
Right,
and it was still getting broken into.
right.
So we contracted with a company that puts steel shutters on doors and windows that are accessible, and that also guarantees their work. They take liability if the building gets broken into. It was costing us well over $100,000 a year for 24/7 security at the building. This is about $33,000 annually. So that's what's happening there. We want to make sure we're preserving the building.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned a rainy day fund. Now, but you also, it was mentioned that we had 1.2 negative balance. Where did the dollars come for a rainy day fund if you got a negative balance?
So the negative balance is into the future. That's in.
I think Representative Smith is referring to a comment made during the public comment period about an operating deficit, which I believe we resolved at the last meeting by transfer of funds. So the operations fund does not have a deficit.
Okay, so
Yes.
what dollar amounts in this rate? You said you put,
There's
is
four-
it just a line item or
No,
do you have money in
No,
it?
there's $4 million in the rainy day fund.
And what was the source of those dollars?
We, at the last meeting, we brought forward, the State Board of Accounts gave us the ability to reconcile all of our funds. We had some positive funds and some negative funds. And frankly, we weren't sure how it was going to end up as we were going through the exercise. But at the end of the day, thanks to a lot of work by these individuals here, as well as internal staff, we were able to track down where the dollars went and where they should have went, and had $4 million left over at the end that we were able to put in rainy day.
I'd like to thank you for, your willingness to recommend that you allow the local government, the local entities to determine whether we're gonna consolidate schools. I really appreciate that. Relative to, a referendum, and this is just my analysis of it, and I know I played a key position in supporting the referendum. Got some criticism for it, and on one of the local radio stations, I continue to get criticism for the role I played, but I did it for a purpose, and I think it was for the good of the community. However, I think you're gonna have trouble with the referendum in the future, and I'm gonna give you some reasons why. I think, MGT promised some things to the community and they failed to deliver them, so there's no faith in what you're gonna do with referendum dollars in the future. Maybe if there's local control, it might be a different scenario. But the trust level is very low when it comes to those referendum dollars and how they were used, and the transparency, the involvement of the community, those things that were promised. That was under your leadership, but it was things were promised that there was gonna be a small advisory group that would keep the community informed, and they made it a dog and pony show. And people are not, I think you'll have real difficulty selling another referendum. And I know I won't be out in front of it, or I doubt that I'll be in front of it, as I was before. I think our answer might be in increasing our numbers. But I don't think MGT during the last 5 years have really had a recruitment plan. You put out those yard signs, and what you do, you put them all around your school. Nobody's coming to your school anyway to see them. They just look all the way around the school, dollars, big dollars, double-sided signs. Signs you can't read because it got too much material on it, too much art on it. And I just think this new school board, because I'm not sure if MGT has the capacity to come up with a real recruitment plan. I think they've got to come up with one. I've made suggestions to the two predecessors. Not that I'm a source of good information, but I've made some suggestions to it, which I think that would be beneficial. And I haven't seen any solid plan. The charter schools have solid plans for recruitment. We don't. And I tell you that that's going to be answered. I don't think that 200 students is a pie in the sky. I think it's achievable if we have a plan to do it. And one of the things I said in that plan, you got to involve community leaders in talking with the parents that get ready to leave, We talked about outreach, when you know that people are dissatisfied. I mean, I gave them the whole thing, and then going back to the attendance thing, once again, not saying I have the answers. But I did a op-ed on how we can improve attendance. And it was based on what I did my 20 years as a building principal in various schools I worked. I think it can be done on a wholesale basis for your community schools. And it's based on best practices. It's based on experience showing it work. And I'm just saying, I think that you can do it. But I think that, I firmly believe that there's none of us as smart as all of us. And that's why I listen to my constituents. Okay. And I think if MGT would listen more to the community, then we might be able to get there. And if we work as a unit, once again, none of us are as strong as all of us. None of us are as effective as all of us. We come together as a community and do some recruitment. Have grandmothers talk to their children. You know, we need to get our children back into Gary schools. I mean, it can be done and the legislators said they were willing to do this. That when a person's getting ready to leave, we're willing to make phone calls and talk to them and try to get them back. It was never explored, never utilized. I'm just saying that I think that's the answer. Because I don't think this community will support a referendum for a long time. Thank you.
It is one of the reasons we did want to show multiple ways. Like I said, the referendum's on paper, the easier. The enrollment, I don't think 200 isn't 232. I don't think it's an outlandish number. That does remain for a surplus for 5 years, which, is part of the exit criteria. But with the referendum ending in 28, it have to go much higher, and I think, I do agree, it needs to be a community effort. It's also one of the reasons we did choose to delay a decision for the board, was we felt it would not be as effective if this was something that MGT did to the district on the way out the door, instead of the new superintendent and the new board working with the community to come up with a path forward.
One more question. The transitional bill that allowed Gary to begin the process of resuming control of the Gary schools had some timelines in here. Here's my understanding, I may be wrong, it won't be the first time, that our superintendent was supposed to be in place January 1st. Am I correct or wrong?
I believe the legislation was,
It didn't say that.
didn't have any.
It had a provision in it, I know, that allowed that superintendent to be on board so that the transition would be smoother.
Just empower,
Okay, what was the timeline? I thought there was a time. There was no
it
time.
just empower the board to make, after the new board, which will, gain authority July 1st. Sometime during this career, but it was silent on exactly what time.
So we can wait up until June.
Typically, this happens January, February,
Yeah.
March time.
The new board has selected a superintendent search firm, and that search firm is beginning, I believe, outreach as early as next week with the community and with the board. And they said that their goal is for the board to be in a position to make a decision by April.
How long has our potential board been in place with appointments?
They have been in place since July 1st.
And it's taken them 7 months to find an entity to do the search.
They interviewed firms through the fall. The superintendent search season, if you will, is typically this time of year. What you find is a lot of superintendents don't want to throw their hat in the ring for a fall.
They don't want to get fired.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, they don't want their current employer knowing that they're looking, because it typically always gets out. And especially if somebody's a finalist, and then, the thing about being a finalist is only one person becomes the superintendent. So this is kind of like the football coach season, it's superintendent season right now too.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for Dr. Razor?
I would make a comment.
Okay.
I think the scenarios you gave didn't include the scenario that probably should exist, and that's one where there are no changes. And even though you think it may fail, it's just be a scenario.
It is there.
I think that's all scenario one, scenario two.
Can you go back to current state, Pete?
Come back to 15, slide 15.
Yeah, it's slide 15, or 14, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, it is 15. 14 was up to date.
Yeah.
So the current slide is what the five-year financial projection with flat enrollment is this was the projections we're allowed to make for exiting distressed unit status.
That's current financial state.
Yeah, current financial state.
Okay. But now, what you don't address in the other ones is consolidation, whether it's in general or not, is going to cause a decrease in enrollment. And people don't like, they're anti-consolidation. Whether or not in the long term, it levels back out, your initial decrease is going to be, I'm not leaving my particular area. So to project that, that's the end, I think, without having those same things. And, nobody else was here when this started, okay? I was. You came after we chose this part. But growth of students was told then, it's the only way this can be brought forward. You have to have an ADM growth. Had to be the high priority. Mike made it very clear. Success was through growth. And it has lacked. I mean, we haven't attacked it majorly. We're relying upon, these different pots of money that might be out there. And I believe Esser came along and gave a great surge of money. We look for, is there a referendum that can come along and add some more money? But referendums are not easy. It failed first time going through, passed it the second time going through. I firmly believe we wouldn't be here today. It would have been dissolved had the referendum not been passed. I think that's probably the future of Gary Community Schools is dissolved if future referendums aren't passed. But that's down the future. But you have to assume, once again, that you said in your opening statement that it's a local decision whether or not, you consolidate schools. I think it's wrong for us to sit down here in Indianapolis and say, oh, you got to consolidate your schools in Gary community, right? I'm not going there. My kids don't go there. But the people that live up there may need to make that decision. So what I think y'all need to do is contribute that effort that you have now before that decision's made into increasing that ADM levels and saying, how do we increase that point there, our point in time, and say, let's grow that. Let's maintain that number. Let's grow that number. It's probably not realistic to get 12 kids to one teacher. It's a great goal down the road, but it's not easy to attain right now. Okay, that's something you attain after you've reached success. But how do you get there with the dollars you have, the schools you have, and how do you get more students? That's got to be the focus. Growth in ADM. And, we only have a limited amount of time left that we can focus on that growth. And unfortunately, with the referendum, I won't say fortunately, unfortunately, it is the way it is. It's probably gonna have to share that if there's a
Well,
referendum.
yeah, the bills that come into
The
the
bill is saying that we're going to share that. So that pot of money was really a shot in the arm, one-time fix of going out there and getting it. And so it's really of taking that effort and time that we have left and focusing on how can we grow this within the model that currently exists. And that's where I'd like to see the efforts going. And, from a financial, I'm not going to speak on academic. I don't live in the world of academia. I live in the world of just a financial. But from a financial stability standpoint, we do have what schools exist now. We have the money that exists, the only growth is through ADM. And we need a strong plan heading toward that. To say we can sustain within the current state.
As far as growth is concerned, there was, when we heard feedback, there was, and it was not, academically, I kind of talk from two sides. Academically, it's not as strong in our opinion as our junior, senior high model was. But there was feedback. I've gotten it from a couple of board members. I've gotten it from the community. We got no negative comments around sixth grade staying in the elementary schools. And there is room in the elementary schools for sixth grade in each of them. And we lose kids from fifth to sixth grade. So there's the growth potential there. Then the question we got asked too, the problem is neither is a really good answer. What if we just had one junior high then with just seventh and eighth grade in one of the buildings? That is a potential scenario, not one we built out for this, but you get half the savings, potentially maybe some enrollment growth, and maybe a stronger junior high program. It's just Bailey and GMS, neither are really great buildings from a deferred maintenance and upkeep standpoint. But that is a little bit of a middle road, but I would agree wholeheartedly. The easiest lever, which is not easy, the simplest lever is enrollment growth.
It has been that way since we began. I mean, it just needs to be one we totally focus on. The students are there, it's obvious, because the number of charter schools that exist. But they have to want to come to Gary. They have to want to come to the programs that are offered, the classes that are offered, and that desire has to be out there. What is your niche to them to get them to come? And I just think that's a focus right now.
Something Dr. Goods and I were actually talking about yesterday that we want to double down on, because the enrollment is now, so, to your point, it's really kind of came front and center with everybody. STEM, career and technical education, the arts and athletics. Those are it's the old Jack Welch, what can you be number one or number two at? And double down on those things. That needs to be the focus of the district. If those, we can offer that better than anyone else in Gary, anyone else in the area, those four things.
Mr. Chairman, if I would let anybody else speak, I wanted to share my thoughts on what was said about the ADM, because I think he's totally right. If I may, please. For every action, there's an opposite of equal reaction, and certainly every time we've closed a school in the area, our population has gone down. I'll give you two examples. Closed Ivanhoe School, which is on 15th and Cherry Street. They had a population of about 700 students. We made the charter school that was 3 or 4 blocks away, because we sent that whole population, it became the neighborhood school. We sent that whole population to that school. I can't remember the name of it, but it's on 50th Avenue near Burr Street. Same thing happened with Jefferson Elementary School downtown. When we closed that population, once again, about 700, 500 of them went to the charter school, those 2 blocks away. And so we've been contributing to the growth, because Gary was used to neighborhood schools. When I was educated with Gary Community School Corporation, we had 40 buildings with 48,000 students, and we had neighborhood schools. And people were used to that. And even though they may not like the charter school, they see it as a neighborhood school and they're gonna go to it. So I'm saying, and I said this to some of those school board members, if you close both those middle schools, you're talking about growing, you're gonna decrease. And you're gonna fall further and further behind. I don't think that's the answer. I think that you're totally right. Now, I think also that there's 2 things in planning. Assessing is, in layman terms, where you've been and where you are now. Plan is where you want to go and how you're going to get there. That's in layman terms. Thank you, Barry. Springwater, so clear. One of the things you say, which I want to put a pin in, is making people upset about the Gary schools. And I would suggest to you, so one of the things is that we lost a lot of them when we got rid of the music program, we got rid of the band program, we got rid of all these things that African-American children treasure. We got rid of sports, which they treasure. Understand Gary the way it should have. And that's just my assessment looking back. And so I'm hoping that as we make this assessment, we look back and see what worked and what didn't work. MTG came in with what was that program, 8 steps. They thought the dumb people in Gary didn't know anything about 8 steps. They imposed it on them. They didn't come to find out that we had already tried 8 steps and didn't work. They didn't look at what caused it to fail. And once again, it fails because you didn't do the assessing. You started planning, but you didn't do an assessing. And I understand. You came in running. You had on there a month or so to open up schools. I understand. But I'm saying that we ought to learn better, that you know better, you got to do better. And so I just want to support that now. I'm not trying to take you guys to Sunday school, but I hope you're listening to me. That if you want to make a smooth transition, then we've got to do more listening to the people. And I tell you, one of the reasons why a lot of families left Gary School, because the mindset of CEOs that we had, the emergency managers, where they push parents out. Gary's success was, and that's the one lady right there can tell you, Gary's success was that we involved our parents in our children's education. And when you shut them out, parents took their kids away. I'm just saying that we're at a pivotal point. And I want Gary to succeed. I want the school corporation to succeed. One reason for Gary to succeed is the school got to succeed. And I'm just hoping that this board will take a new perspective. I'm glad to hear somebody saying some of the things that we've said here as we go through this transition program and not just set whatever is placed before the DUAB board.
Thank you. If I may, Dr. Fraser, I have a couple of questions. On slide 16, which is titled Addressing the Deficit in School Year 28-29. We lay out, you've laid out a couple of probably multiple permutations of things that the new board needs to consider and the new superintendent needs to consider. But in these particular three, we have a referendum, that forecasts, and again, these are just forecasts, roughly $800,000 operating surplus in 28-20, or by 33-34. You have an enrollment that, I guess I'll just call it, with the assumption of 232 students as a break-even analysis. It basically gets you above sea level in the same time period. And then you've got consolidation and 2 schools at $4 million. I would, and then so these are all, though, there's no interplay or interdependence. These are all in isolation if you only did the one thing,
Yes,
correct?
one lever each, yeah.
And then the 2 scenarios you play out are just 2 of possibly many different scenarios. And the one thing we didn't actually try to estimate right now, besides the school consolidation or the growth in enrollment, is also operational savings, which also need to be looked at as well.
Yes.
Correct? So it's fair to say that there's these 3, it's not a single silver bullet.
No,
I guess what I would say in my full-time job of working at OMB and seeing the range of problems, whether it's health and human services, education, or even building roads, there's usually no one single solution to solving very complex problems. And we have complex problems with this, what we're trying to deal with. And so there is an interplay. So that all have to be considered. Do you lose ADM because you take certain actions? It could be from closing schools and consolidating schools, but it could be for other factors as well. It's not achieving other objectives. And so I think what we've got here is a stark reality that, yes, we're going to get out of distressed status, but there are still tough decisions that have to be made by the superintendent and the new school board. And these are options here, and no single one, even with the referendum being as plentiful as it looks, under the current state of sharing that referendum dollars, does not solve the problem. And even in this one scenario, on scenario 1, you're still counting on the consolidation of 2 schools at roughly $2 million apiece. And so I don't think any one path. ADM is definitely important. We need to increase ADM. But I think our message is, how do we set up this new board and superintendent with the best chance for success in being able to deal and make very informed, difficult decisions when they take control? Sorry, I went off. Besides any questions.
Well, and if I can talk to slide 16, and the question got asked last night by Chairman Suggs, President Suggs. What's such a big deal about 28, 29? Well, that's the 5th year that the district has to run the surplus to get out of distressed unit stats. However, none of us have that as our sole concern. It's, to your point, Mr. Johnson, it is long-term solvency and sustainability of the district, not being able to just check the boxes, oh, we did it. So those, you're right, those are each one lever that, if turned or pulled, can keep the district running at surplus and solvent through 28, 29. But you're right, in concert, these are very complex problems with a lot of complex factors that all have to play in. And we're trying to give, to your point, the board and new superintendent all the facts and the best possible starting point that they can have to move forward.
Thank you. Other questions for Dr. Razor? Thank you very much. Our next agenda item is the review of the 1065 budget and also school improvement plans.
So the board has the control document for December 31st. And the agenda item is just to approve the claims that were written during the month of December. You've got 5 entries there on the second page. I note that the first 2 to Corellis Roofing were actually, transactions prior to December that were written, mistakenly out of school improvement fund that was supposed to be ESSER. So that's actually money that was put back into the fund, with the money that came from a different account. And so then the other three, items you can see that were spent, the most significant one was, Jason Mechanical for, some of the HVAC work that was done at, West Side. That was unexpected and was emergency use.
I think in that instance, then don't we want to make the motion that we approve like these three claims individually rather than the dollar amount total? All right,
We typically have done them collectively.
since one's a negative though.
If you want to separate the two, we can.
So the first two, follow up on Paul's point here, the first two, are we just, is that just a correcting entry to be paid
It
out?
is a correct entry. In a previous month,
Yeah.
you approved, checks to Corellis, but actually it was properly should be from ESSER. And so it was just an adjustment.
I think I'll make a motion that we approve the Miller Laundry Systems for $587. Martin Riley claim for $5,581.36, and the Jason Mechanical claim for $146,911.80 from the school group.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. So, before we vote on that, would you consider a motion from the floor to make the correcting entries to get the funds in the right, or from the right source, pay the funds from the right source? Or add that to your motion?
I'd have to ask for clarification do we need to approve these for the ESSER account? Or we're only gonna approve the ones for the caps?
So they would already be within a spending plan for ESSER.
Right, but like, so I don't think I had to approve those expenditures alone, but I would make note within the same comment that we're putting money back into the school improvement fund through this correcting entry.
So you're making a motion to
Add
add
that
to
to
that?
my motion.
Is there a second to include that?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other questions or comments? If not, I'll take,
So, Mr. Holt had to step on the plane, so, two things in that, he wanted to let you know he was supportive of all the remaining items for one. And secondly, none of the three of you could leave, or else we'll form, so, so you don't have to vote virtually now, it's just the three.
oh, okay, so it's just the three of us. So all those in favor say aye. Aye, opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Next up, we have the revision to spending plans for ESSER 3 and school improvement plans.
Sure. Hopefully, these are pretty simple explanations. With ESSER 3, we have been doing a review of our expenditures and have identified $5.5 million that we can take into direct cost in projects that have come in under budget and projects that are no longer needed to be needed in our ESSER plan. Likely we'll be coming back again before May, which is the deadline for ESSER 3 amendments, and we'll hopefully be able to take some more indirect costs as well. But at this time, feel comfortable taking 5.5 million. Then with 1065, we identified that we have about $5.4 million left in funding for that, and wanted to prioritize things that, again, tie in with the previous presentation, that put the district on the best foot forward. So we're going to prioritize HVAC and plumbing, piping, those type of things, energy efficiency, health and safety, and then unaddressed issues that the sidewalk. Well, and the other thing that I would say is most, if not all, of the projects we're reprioritizing for this work check multiple boxes here. The sidewalk at West Side, for example, if you've been in front of the high school, over years, I'm sure at one time there were trees or something larger there. It's a safety issue, but it needs to be replaced. The HVAC systems in these buildings, our three newer schools were all built around the turn of the century, this past century, but imagine using a 2005 computer today. That's what they're running on in their HVAC system. So we want to change the controls out on those, get those to be more modern. But feel like that is the best use of these funds with the remaining 1065 that we have.
Questions for Dr. Razor on either the ESSER amendment or the 1065 amendment?
Question, Mr. Chairman. Did I hear you say the balance in the ESSER fund is 5 point something?
In the ESSER fund, we identified 5.5 million.
It's 5.5. I think he's asking about 5.4, which is the school improvement
So-
fund. That's-
Yeah, ESSER, we identified 5.5, either unspent or unneeded in our budget that we originally set out for ESSER, where we came under budget or decided that that a program wasn't working, so we stopped it. In 1065, there's 5.4 million left that has not been allocated to projects yet.
And that school improvement fund is funded by debt service for loans that were suspended back in 2020. And so all told, it's about 24 million and change, but it only comes in once a year. So,
Okay,
so
so make it screen while it just clear to a dummy.
yes,
What is the balance of the money in the ESSER funds that hasn't been encumbered?
that's closer
That
to,
hasn't been encumbered was around $8 million. That's,
Okay, out of how many dollars we got originally?
from ESSER 3, was it 30?
I'd go to the DOE webpage and find out. But
Yeah.
It's
A guesstimation?
well, ESER 3 originally was like 80.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And so we spent 70,
There's about 8 million.
There's 8 million, there's about 8 million left unencumbered.
and we had a timeline to spend that money right there.
That is the timeline to spend the money is December of 2024.
Well, is that the obligation with an extended, longer tail period to actually spend it?
As of right now, I believe it is the end of 2024 to spend the money. We will not be losing money on it.
Encumbered, it had to be encumbered, it didn't necessarily be spent by that date.
No, it has to be encumbered by September,
Okay, and spent by,
December.
And USDOE recently came out with some guidance that said, like, if you have a vendor that hasn't quite completed the work by the end of December, that could extend beyond that, but that's the only extension that's been granted.
We'll take these individually. If there is a motion to approve the ESSER 3 amendment. There's a motion, a second. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye, opposed, same sign. The amendment is adopted. Next up is the 1065 School Improvement Fund. This is the $5.4 million use of and this would be the remaining chunk, or close to exhausting the rest of it, right? Sorry. Is there a motion on School Improvement Fund plan for the $5.4 million?
I'll make a motion to approve the revision to school improvement fund.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yes. What is the plan? I'm playing catch up. What is the plan of using? Do I have that document?
Yeah, it's back to that is how the remaining money will be spent.
Okay, and when's the deadline to spend this money?
There isn't,
There isn't?
not to spend it.
Okay, so,
That's true.
once again, what kind of involvement has the potentially new school board had in in making these decisions, or is this a MGT till July? June 30th?
It is an MGT thing, but I've discussed with the board what these changes.
And they had no concerns.
No, I mean, and there are more projects that we want to do that we're looking for funding as well, but these were identified as the most pressing issues for the buildings.
Thank you.
So there won't be any new revenue after this year, but it could be spent after.
Yeah, and so on this list includes some of the things that you had mentioned in the previous presentations
Yes.
about LED lighting and HVAC. right?
Yes, yes, plumbing,
So it should lead to some efficiency.
yes.
I guess that's all.
So
Yeah.
we've had a motion and a second. There's no further discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. The 1065 School Improvement Fund Amendment is approved. Our final item is the non-teaching staff stipends.
Yes, and these are in line with the stipends that were approved by the DUAB board last meeting for the teachers. Basically, same format, fall and spring payment for highly effective teachers being paid out of, or employees being paid out of ESSER, the rest coming out of general fund, but stipends were paid instead of a cost of living increase or raise, so it is not a year-over-year impact to the budget.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I didn't do the math on this, but it seems like the easy one to come is the professional staff. That's about $2,000. Is the amount the same for each of these?
So for what we did is this fell in line with teachers got a $7,000 stipend this year. So leadership would be administrators, also got $7,000 stipend, 3,500 fall, 3,500 spring. Professional staff got a $4,000 stipend, 2,000 fall, 2,000 spring. And then clerical got 2,500 or 1,000. People getting 1,000 are not full year employees.
It's broken up into two, one
Yeah.
in February, one in May.
Okay.
So what we're, as far as the total cost, we're just showing the first installment.
Well, no, it's both installments, so 278 for both.
Yes.
Okay. Very good.
The total expenditure for all three levels for both paychecks would be 278.
278, okay. Is there a motion on the non-teaching staff stipends?
I move to approve the non-teaching staff stipends, 119,000 leadership, 76,000 professional staff, and 92,000 for clerical and support staff.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further conversation or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Stipends are approved. Is there any other business to come before the Distressed Unit Appeal Board today?
Yeah, I know all of you sorry that I'm back here. I read the map was going. But let me just underscore something that was pointed to before. I think during this process, Gary was given the opportunity to stay up paying for the common school fund, the reimbursement. Okay. Once it's turned back over to Gary will have to start. That's gonna put us way behind if we have to pay that. I mean, we talked about the problems that we're gonna have in the future. That's gotta be added to that problem. I don't know if you factored that in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just saying, when we go back and say it's a combination of things like operational savings and recruitment and all that, increase ADM. I'm saying, please look at that debt that we owe the state.
The basis for some of the graphs you saw earlier, Senator Dalton did incorporate the reinstatement of the common school fund in the next year, and then basically bookending what has been, for the forbearance, if you will, for the last 5 years, and moved it out for that pay period. So it's based in their cash
I
flow
know
right
it's
now.
being.
But as far as solution, I
I'm
understand your
saying
point.
as relief,
Yeah.
so that we be better able to
I-
run this race with success.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very good. Well, if there's no other business, stand adjourned. Thank you.